scary, and people who are in public service and who are public servants deserve to have personal securities. I think we're all worried about the ricin that was sent to Secretary Mattis, that was sent to Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
These people who have been chased out of restaurants, that have been told that there's no place in society for them, that they have to literally eat their meals in their home because people attack them. There's so much that's going on. And I think the problem we're going to get into now with your question is who's at fault? And I guess I'm going to pull it back even broader. I think we're all at fault, first of all, because we've lost our manners. Yeah, I myself, I find, have to remind myself, like, we're each human beings and we ought to be treated with some respect. And our society seems to have depersonalized everything. You can't get a cup of coffee anymore without the person and the person buying the coffee having any kind of pleasant exchange. Everything is just down to the transaction. It's true in politics, too, where we jump to each other's throats way too quickly. I think there's a lot of blame to go around. And yes, I think social media and mainstream media has a lot to do with why we communicate like this as well.
And Matt, I take your point. Listen, it is scary, whether it's suspected explosive devices, whether it's suspected ricin, that stuff is obviously terrifying to the public servants who receive it. But you talk about manners here. You talk about the climate that we're in. You mentioned the media. You mentioned others. Does President Trump himself, in the language that he uses and in the way that he conducts himself, bear any responsibility for the lack of civility that you're talking about?
Each one of us does. I think the difference is for Trump is that, Hallie, much of the coverage starting last night turned into this: Trump is responsible for the fact that our politics seem to be more coarse. And that's exactly the problem, which is people in the media too quickly want to blame Trump for almost everything. And they don't say this. I saw your highlight reel, but do you know what it's like to have the former top law enforcement official in the United States government, Eric Holder, say it's okay to kick people like me? I don't think that's appropriate. I want to see that highlight reel.
Eric Holder did say he wasn't talking about anything illegal. He wasn't talking about anything inappropriate.
That's assault and battery.
He specifically clarified that. That's what I want to just make clear.
It's assault and battery. He shouldn't say it, and nobody criticized him except Michelle Obama.
He specifically said it was a metaphor, that he did not mean that anybody should do anything inappropriate.
And that is not 72 hours later.
But wait a second, Matt. I wonder, it seems to me, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but it seems to me that you are trying to draw an equivalency between the language that President Trump uses and the language that, for example, Eric Holder, as you just brought up, used. Let me show you. Wait a second. Let me just play. I want to read you something. Hang on one second. Matthew Dowd, who used to work, obviously, for the Bush administration, has this. I want to read you what he writes. He says, "This is not a both sides moment," he says. "This starts with the president. There is no Democratic leader fomenting hate and division, even close to what the president is doing and has done. GOP members need to speak out against the leader of their tribe and drop the both sides BS. Do Republicans need to do more to speak out against that kind of rhetoric, even when it comes from President Trump?"
Well, this is that example that you just read, Hallie, and I respect you, but Matthew Dowd left the Republican Party, is a partisan liberal, supports Democrats, and is a never-Trumper. So I don't know why I have to get lectured to. So his point is invalid because of his political views? No, I'm not trying to lecture. I'm asking. You said you implied that he's a Republican. He is not even close to being a Republican. And yes, he wants to push a political advantage on these terrible things that are happening amongst us. And I think that's a mistake. I only bring up Eric Holder because the premise of this interview is somehow Donald Trump is responsible for people fomenting violence in the streets. I actually think it's Donald Trump who is standing up and saying we're not going to be blamed, which is a ridiculous charge. You know, when Republicans want
I think we were really clear, though, Matt, at the top of the segment. That's not what I'm doing. We're not trying to draw that link. It's about the culture and the climate that we are in. And that is how we started this discussion. And that's why we wanted to have you on.
Okay, fair enough. Ask a question, I'll answer it.
Well, we're